Me and Pac went in the studio and did a song together. And then them little dudes.
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you.
Now, once he got on, did he ever reach back to you?
Yeah, Jay had me come and do Summer Jam with him one year. I think that was the time when he had that.
It is true. Tupac, he really had an issue with Jay-Z. He really didn't like him then.
Not at all. I think that if Pac was alive, it would have been a whole different story. And as much money as Jay-Z has, he still hasn't accomplished what Tupac accomplished before he was at 25 years old.
Big Daddy Kane just dropped a bomb about Jay-Z and Tupac, and nobody saw this one coming. The story we've all been fed. It might not be the whole truth. See, Kane was the one who first opened the doors for Jay-Z, no question about it. Jay was just a hungry MC back then, tagging along on Kane's tour, freestyling on stage while Kane switched outfits. Jay was part of the cypher, part of the crew, and it wasn't just some quick favor. Kane really put in work. He helped record Jay's early tracks and even shopped his demo to major labels. But once Jay started climbing up, Kane's name started disappearing real fast. That's where things start getting shady, and it gets even deeper when you bring Tupac into the picture. While Kane was helping Jay make moves in the East, Pac was out there in the West, taking shots at the whole industry, calling out fake rappers, and yep, even throwing some heat at Jay-Z. So now people are asking, what is Kane really hinting at? Did Jay-Z take more than just influence from Kane and Pac? Did he build his empire while stepping right over the legends who came before him?
Oh, hold up. Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
Let's dig into it. Back in the early 90s, Jay-Z was still a nobody. Big Daddy Kane gave him a major cosign during the Chocolate City tour, letting him rap live while Kane made outfit changes. That kind of stage time was priceless. Kane even recorded with Jay and tried to get him signed, but most labels just weren't feeling Jay's flow back then.
Jay-Z, I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you was shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Yeah. This was, I want to say, I don't know, 90, 91 maybe. We was, Jay, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
They said his style didn't hit. Still, Kane believed in him. He saw something others didn't. Jay eventually found his lane, but here's the twist. Kane's fingerprints are all over Jay's early flow. That fast, slick, aggressive delivery, that was Kane's style to begin with, but over time, Jay's rise erased a lot of that history. His interviews, his documentaries, barely mention Kane.
I remember actually having a record deal through a production deal with someone else and recording, and then the next thing you know, someone else on the label blew up.
Even in Jay's memoir, Decoded, he only gives Kane a quick shout out for stage presence and timing. No real gratitude, no deep tribute, just a nod. And yeah, Kane noticed, then came that lyric in Jay's track, Do It Again. I've seen the same ish happen to Kane, 3 cuts in your eyebrows trying to wild out. Now hold up, Kane made those 3 eyebrow slits iconic back in the day. It was his look, his brand. So when Jay drops that line with a slick tone, people started whispering, was that a diss? Even Angie Martinez brought it up on her show, suggesting it sounded like Jay was throwing shade. Kane later brushed it off in public, but behind the scenes, folks were buzzing, especially since by that time, Kane's commercial run had cooled down and a new generation of rappers was taking over. Jay, once the student, was now the big dog. And that line, it hit like a cold shoulder, almost like Jay was saying, thanks for the help, now move aside. Jay himself has admitted he studied Kane backstage when his moves, his confidence, his timing, but as Jay morphed into the polished, money-hungry hustler we know today, Kane started fading from the story. And now, years later, Kane's asking himself, did Jay intentionally push him out of the spotlight? But Kane ain't the only one who noticed this shift. Around the same time Kane was fading back, Tupac was turning the heat up. Pac had already clocked the change in the game, from artists with soul and substance to a wave of rappers chasing flashy images and fast cash. He saw it happening in real time. And one of the new names climbing fast? Jay-Z. Back then, rumors were swirling that Jay felt threatened by Tupac, like he knew deep down he couldn't match Pac's energy. Jay had the bars, no doubt. But Pac had that raw magnetic power, that can't teach it kind of presence. It's wild to think about now. Two legends like Kane and Pac possibly being left in the shadows while Jay built his legacy brick by brick. But as Kane starts speaking out, the spotlight might be shifting again. There's a level of presence that most rappers just can't fake. Man, that's what set Pac apart. But all that energy, it eventually exploded. Jay-Z and Tupac had real tension before Pac was tragically killed. And it wasn't just industry gossip, it was personal. It all kicked off when Jay started teaming up with Biggie, and together they took subtle shots at the West Coast. Jay and Big, both out of Bed-Stuy, got real tight in the early 90s. By 96, they dropped Brooklyn's Finest and the highlight off Jay's Reasonable Doubt album. But that collab, it lit a fuse that couldn't be undone. Irv Gotti, who was close with Jay back then, straight up warned him, don't put Big on that track. The East versus West beef was already boiling over, and Irv saw what was coming.
You got to go back to Brooklyn's Finest. I was dead set against it. I was telling Jay, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was like, why? And I was just like, Big he's too strong. I said, but before we take over the world, we got to take over the West Coast. Before we take over the West Coast, we got to take over the East Coast. Before we take over the East Coast, we got to take over New York. Before we take over New York, you got to take over Brooklyn. And he owns all that. And I was like, this is not a whack. So I was just like, I was in fear that I was like, yo, you may come off like this little man. You understand?
He knew that dropping a joint track with Biggie could make everything worse and fast. Now, Biggie didn't start out on bad terms with Pac, but all that changed in '94 after the infamous Quad Studios shooting. Pac got hit 5 times during a robbery, and he was convinced that Big and Diddy had inside knowledge. Whether it was true or not, Pac felt betrayed, and he never let that go. Biggie, for his part, denied having anything to do with it.
Yeah, I think Pac was more upset that that word was getting back to him, that the people that did do this to him was affiliated one way or another with Biggie, and whether they was extorting him or word got back that they was going to do this to Pac. So this is one of the reasons that Pac was upset.
But after that moment, it was war. Pac and Biggie started throwing shots at each other in public. And right around the time Jay was dropping Brooklyn's Finest, Biggie released Who Shot Ya?, which Pac took personally, thinking it was a direct diss. That track only poured gasoline on an already blazing fire. And that's exactly why Irv told Jay to chill. But Jay didn't listen. He dropped Brooklyn's Finest anyway, and Biggie's verse was full of smoke, calling Pac his son and alluding to those messy Faith Evans rumors.
And then what Big did, which I was like, that's why Pac was on Jay, because of Brooklyn's Finest. If they have twins, you probably have 2 Pacs. Get it? 2 Pacs. And Jay's on the record with him. So now he's like, you ain't no like me, Jay-Z. Then he start bombing on Jay.
People knew exactly who that was aimed at. Pac clapped back hard. Tracks like Bomb First, My Second Reply, and Fuck Friends had his signature fury all over them, and Jay-Z's name was in the mix. Fans were ready for a full-blown response from Jay, expecting him to fire back with a diss track of his own. But that moment never came, at least not publicly. Just weeks later, Pac was gunned down in a drive-by in Vegas. The world was stunned. But here's the twist. Jay had already written a response track called Scathing, and word is, it was savage. A full-blown diss aimed at Pac that never saw an official release. Why not? According to insiders, Jay didn't want to stir the pot while Pac was still alive, but after Pac passed, Jay couldn't hold it in. He performed Scathing live at the Apollo, and it shocked the crowd. DJ Clark Kent said the lyrics were cold-blooded and deeply disrespectful, so why would Jay choose to finally air that diss when Pac wasn't around to answer?
And it's funny because before he performed the record, he was like, yo, no disrespect to the dead, but you just can't say whatever to me.
Oh, so he actually performed it after Pac passed?
Yeah, we was at the Apollo. It was, I will say this, if you can find anybody who was at that show and the Apollo was packed, they will tell you that it was absolutely crazy, the things he was saying. I was like, Lord Jesus. Like when you know when you hear something, it's one thing, but then when you hear it performed, it's like, jeez. It was super tough.
That's where things get messy. There's long been whispers that Jay felt relieved after Pac died. Word on the street is Jay respected Pac, but he was also scared of him. Pac had that raw, unpredictable energy that no one else could touch. In fact, Gene Deal, who used to be Diddy's bodyguard, claimed that Jay once refused to leave his Vegas hotel because Pac and his crew were out roaming the city.
The story is that Jay was gonna try to perform in Vegas, but Pac was in Vegas, and him and his dudes now. And they wasn't gonna let Jay-Z come out the hotel. They found out where Jay was at. And Jay wasn't gonna come out the hotel. He was gonna miss that performance or whatever like that. Do that concert, and Jay was scared of the motherfucker. Jay wasn't coming out that hotel until he got clearance.
Jay didn't want any smoke. That's how serious the fear was. Fans have called Jay sneaky for never addressing Pac face-to-face, saying he waited until it was safe to speak up. And the truth, Jay and his circle were known for throwing subliminal jabs, trying to bait Pac into reacting. They knew Pac wore his heart on his sleeve, emotional, fiery, and always ready to respond. Old school rappers from that era say Jay was straight up jealous. He knew Pac had a magnetic presence, that rare it factor. Jay might have had the clever bars and slick delivery, but he couldn't match the pure force of Pac's energy. No matter how big he got, that shadow always lingered. Even Nas couldn't stay quiet about Jay-Z's attitude toward Pac and Biggie. In an old interview, Nas dropped a wild story. He said Jay once looked him dead in the eye and claimed he was better than both of them. Nas told Vibe, "We were kicking it, and he told me that he's better than Biggie. I looked at him like he was crazy." And then it got even crazier. Jay went on to say that Tupac and DMX weren't lyricists. Nas wasn't having it. He clapped back saying Tupac was the greatest ever, period. That moment stuck with fans and is part of the reason why Jay's been called a snake by so many people in the game, but that's not even the end of it. Jay-Z stayed tight with Diddy even after all those dark rumors started floating around. Rumors linking Diddy to the setup that led to Pac's death. And once both Pac and Biggie were gone, Diddy suddenly started giving Jay all kinds of flowers, saying he was the one who stepped in and filled their shoes. Meanwhile, the streets were buzzing with suspicion.
Bro, you filled them shoes though. You came in and you know what I'm saying? So we definitely give thanks for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you definitely, came in and I just know how much Big like really looked up to Jay. You know what I'm saying? They looked up to each other. And yeah, that is crazy to have to step into the shoes of like two people. Because that's all it was, really, was those two people. And they had like the game, they had things on lock. Hove was coming, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was like these two cats was just so big, you know what I'm saying? And then so it's like to have all of that, like, come on you and have that responsibility to keep this shit fly and keep the art of it going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I think Hove really kept the, Hove kept the art of it going and was able to take where they was at and take it, take it even higher.
Jay never distanced himself. Through years of whispers and accusations surrounding Diddy, Jay kept standing next to him, all smiles and handshakes, right up until that Cassie lawsuit in 2023 cracked everything wide open. Then suddenly, Jay started acting like he barely knew the guy. He's now out here claiming he and Diddy were never even friends. For real? So what's the real story behind all this? From Big Daddy Kane's quiet frustration, to Tupac's early warnings, to Jay's own sneaky behind-the-scenes plays, it's starting to look like Jay didn't just rise to the top on talent alone. He studied the game, borrowed styles, sidestepped his mentors, and carefully removed anyone who might threaten his spot. Strategic, absolutely. But clean, not even close. And now, decades later, his own peers are finally talking. They're questioning whether Jay's legacy is really about greatness or if it's built on cold betrayal, silence, and calculated moves. But now I want to hear your thoughts. Was Jay-Z just playing chess in an industry full of sharks? Or did he flat out turn his back on the people who put him on? Was his jealousy of Pac real? And did it shape the way he moved ever since? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, share this with a friend, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.